This is as good as this angle's gonna get. Alright, so wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about how I started thinking about guitar scales and modes. I spent many years trying to figure it out, from the pentatonic shapes and hearing people describe it with different names, and it never just really clicked. And the thing that really helped was just basically focusing on the major scale. And I pretty much just tried to do it in one key, starting in C. So it all started to click a whole lot more. And so I guess I'll just show a little bit about that. So, there's your usual kind of pentatonic box shape, and that just never made sense where to do that. So I started this octave scale, starts from the low string, the C, and goes up to the octave on the D string. So it's pretty out of tune. And just focusing on the notes between that, and there's only 8. So, and then giving them the numbers too. If you know the names of them, that can help you kind of navigate a little when it comes to songs. But as far as learning the pattern, I think numbering the notes or giving names to the numbers of the note in the scale help a little bit more once you start trying to turn that into modes. So, our basic major scale in C: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you probably know that that's just like a power chord, right? Or like a bar chord in the E shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if that is a little tricky to remember that, try just thinking about a few pieces of that. So that's the 5, right? Then maybe try to do it on like a 3-note per string. That might help visualize it once we get into some minors and other modes. But this one just really fits under the fingers really nicely. So once you kind of have that, you can learn it from this one up to the next one. And if you start adding in the arpeggios, so basically those chord tones, that's going to be the 1, 3, and 5. So if you even just play those, that's all of them. 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. That's going to be your arpeggio. 1, 3, 5, root. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 5. And if you know some other shapes of your triads, they're going to start kind of clicking when you put these together. So here's another kind of pattern. It's a little bit less common, but it starts on this. Oh yeah, see, I don't need... And once you kind of have those in mind, you're thinking about the intervals. So it's a whole step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, a half step. So whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Again, kind of doesn't matter. Just know this pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, so here's where it gets interesting. In any chord, basically the root is always gonna, so if we start thinking about modes, we're gonna start thinking about changing, sharpening, or flattening some of those numbers. That's essentially what. And yeah, people will say that's technically a second mode, so that's like, but if you think of that in little patterns, that helps. But if you do the arpeggios, so 1, you're skipping 1, doing the 3, you're skipping the 4, and then playing the 5. But if you start on the 2, and then you skip the 3, and then you play the 4, skip the 5, and then play the 6. Just try playing that. So I'll kind of back and forth between the major scale. So okay, so you, in any scale, the fifth is almost always going to be that in almost all the modes. There's only one mode where that changes. That's a diminished mode, and it's kind of not super frequently used. So that one's pretty safe to bet, and that's why power chords work. The 4 also, in most cases, natural. The first one you'll see, well, if you've been playing jam bands, you've heard of the flat 7. So instead of, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that 7 is a flattened 7. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you could kind of see that if you played from those notes, and that's what they say, but that gets a little confusing. So I just think of Mixolydian as major with a flat 7. That's all you really need to remember. Super easy, right? And then a minor is going to flatten the 3rd also. So instead, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a flat 7. We're going to flatten this, the 3rd one. And again, if you were to visualize that down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we flatten that 3rd, you'll see your kind of pentatonic shape now. So instead of just flattening that one note now. Okay, so, and then if that's a natural minor, I forgot what they call it, but see, that still has the normal natural 6th. So if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's still the natural. But you'll hear the difference right away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you could try doing that, and so if you have the, I'm getting a countdown, then you get that kind of, alright, I got cut off there, so. rare, they would flatten maybe the second. Okay, so then you can do that. And then if you also hear this kind of play one of these roots while you're going up the scale, you'll really start to hear those kind of relationships from the major. So I think you can just practice that major scale, get that down. Just get to know that flat third. It's like bathtub jams. And if it gets confusing, but if you keep counting from your root, 1, 2, 3, you can think 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can just hear it and kind of sound it out. Eventually, you'll get more comfortable. It'll become muscle memory, and you know, maybe there's better ways to actually apply this, but I just felt like this is a way that actually makes sense to me. And while you're jamming, you can kind of play with these a little bit. So if you have like a backing track, you can kind of start to focus on these notes, and you'll know kind of which scale to use. If you now add the letters, the names of the notes, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. This is why C is great to start with, because everything's natural to start with. So it's obvious, like, something's flat or sharp. One of the modes I didn't go over is sharp 4. The Trey will use that sometimes. See, sometimes I need to go back to my main scale to have that reference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4. And how would you know whether to use that? Well, if the chord has your progression is a C, C, D, E, does it have an F or an F sharp and C? So it kind of tells you what you can use, but you can jump in between a normal. If it's in minor, you can maybe play with that like flat 6th. If it's in major, you could try playing with that 7th. Sometimes Phish jams are pretty specific and you can't necessarily use that natural 7th, but hopefully this helps. If it did, I'm curious, or if you have questions, leave them in the comments below, or if you want more on this, be happy to share what I've discovered through my trial and error, mostly error. All right. All right, let's see. About 2001. So a lot of that trace stuff is actually kind of not too hard note-wise. It's a lot of and then so this is kind of like that triad, and then you could kind of change out the upper root with the flat 7. So you can just kind of make little patterns out of that. And another good thing to do while you're practicing the scale is skipping a note, because that's a lot of what Trey does. He kind of makes these runs by doing that, or what I was saying before, the like kind of skip triads that you'd find in there. And then those go along with chords, so if you know those chords, like that'll help you put those shapes together. But it all really kind of starts to make sense, and there's only so many patterns. So your very first step, if this is all kind of new, I would say go around and find your 2 octaves, your C, and then you're gonna eventually learn that same major pattern from the A string. So I'm not playing the C, I'm playing a different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, natural 7. So if you were going to do that down here, this is the C on the A string. And then practice going here. Okay, and then the very last thing I wanted to mention about that is that that's going to repeat, because here we are on the 8th fret. We're on the 3rd fret here. So that means right here, this is also 1, which means that's also 1. And then up here's, so there's only a couple places you gotta really think about it. I think if you think just about where those root notes fall on the low note, low string, low E string, and the A string, that's a good starting point. Alright, that's it. Now I'm up.